Hello everyone. So you've heard the news that we're going to be slowly reopening here at St. Michael's in Cherville. The diocese has put out guidelines for reopening, and it's just important to know that every parish will go at its own pace. So some parishes might not reopen right away. We plan to start this Sunday with one Mass. And our first Masses are all going to be, the first few weeks are for our first communicants. So our first communicants would have received their sacrament a few weeks ago, so we're going to start with them. So those Masses are all by invited guests. Now we have this huge church, and you say, why can't I come when I have this huge church? Well, the reason is because we have to honor the social distancing expectations, which is 6 feet. Now, 6 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have something to visualize 6 feet with, such as this pole here, this is 6 feet. So when I sit in the pew, and it's 6 feet away, that's where it is. So there's only one other person who can sit in the pew. If I have a family and we all live in the same house, and there's 3 or 4 of us, we can sit here, but then probably at that end, only one person would be able to sit. You see, so we are restricted by the number of people that we can fit into the church. So for you mathematicians out there, the metric that we use is we measure the square feet of where the pews are, and we divide that by 36. So that's 6 feet on either side of me, front, back, and the sides for each person. That gives us a seating capacity of about 145, and if we use the windowsills, maybe 155 people, okay? So that sounds pretty extreme, but that's what we're asked to follow, and we're not going to open if we're not going to be safe. It's as simple as that. So that is what we're going to be dealing with. Now, as time goes by, we are able to adjust the social distancing. In the federal guidelines, it talks about 3 kinds: strict social distancing, which would be the 6 feet, and then it talks about moderate social distancing, which would maybe be 4.5 feet or so, and then it talks about another kind of social distancing, the name escapes me right now, and that's maybe about 3 feet. So as time goes by, we'll be able to put more people in church, depending upon, obviously, if everything goes okay outside in the world, with people not contracting the disease and hospitals not being overwhelmed. It all hinges on that. So when we come into church, what's going to happen is, we're all going to enter through the south doors. So you look through these doors here, you look through the hall, and you see the south doors. So we're not going to enter through the tower door or this east door over here or the chapel door. Those doors will all be locked. When we have Mass on the weekend, we're entering through the south doors. That way we can get everybody in pretty much who's going to be coming, all the reserved guests or what have you, because we'll be able to separate each person or family group that lives together by 6 feet in the hall coming into the church. So we'll be able to accommodate. We don't want anybody to get caught in the rain as we're waiting to get into church. So we're not going to be able to all herd into church at the last minute. So everybody's going to be asked for these first communion Masses, and then later for Masses that we will have to reserve for. We're going to be asked to be here 20 minutes before Mass so that we can begin to seat. If everybody comes at the last minute, we won't have Mass, because Mass has to start on time, because it has to end on time, because at the end of this, when we're doing our regular Mass schedule, we have to disinfect between the Masses. We have to disinfect the tops of the pews, the kneelers, etc. So we need time to do that. Okay, so as I said, the last few weeks is going to be a very different kind of return. What won't be different is the Eucharist. It's the same Eucharist. We will receive our Lord Jesus in the body only, and everyone is asked to receive on the hand. And I'll make some more comment about this before Masses too, but when you receive on the hand, don't cup your hand like this, please, and don't take, okay? Because I don't want to touch your hand. I just want to be able to place the Eucharist in it. So please come forward with your hand as flat as possible like this, okay? So that I can just put your hand, the host in your hand. And to begin with, the only person helping me with communion will be Deacon Ron, well, because there'll only be 150 people here in church or so. So it's not going to take a very long time. But so communion will be, we'll explain more about that when you come to Mass so that you remember it at the moment. But certainly you can practice this at home right now, you know. And so we ask that if you receive on the tongue, that you please receive in the hand at this point in time until we're past this virus, because I don't want to give it to the next person. So if somebody insists on receiving on the tongue, then they have to wait until after Mass is over and everyone has left the building, and then they can approach me or the deacon, and they would receive communion then from the tabernacle in the chapel. So here we are in our chapel, and some people might say, well, why don't we use the chairs in the chapel as well? Well, we will perhaps someday, but not in the first few weeks, because we're getting used to just how to do this in the first place. But in the chapel, you'll see that there is only room for 22 chairs in the chapel by the social distancing metric that we must use. And so we don't gain a great deal of seats by the chapel. At present, weekday Mass is by invitation this week, particularly. Bishop McClory has asked for it to be that way. The people being invited are not more holy than anybody else. They don't give more money than anybody else. They aren't friends of mine. They're people who are going to be helping us to open up and implement the different protocols that we have to do when we do open up. So they're going to be liturgical lay ministers who are going to be helping us to make this possible and to make it a safe opening and a safe way for us to worship together. In the coming weeks, through this medium and at Mass, I will continually talk about the different things that we need to be attentive to when we come to church. Also, I will speak about a system that we are presently investigating regarding how to reserve to come to Mass. We won't be able to do that until after Pentecost, so it won't be until the first weekend of June that we will be able to open that up. And before that, I will speak to you about how that will work. But when you do come to Mass, whether it's for one of these first communions or as a liturgical lay minister being trained and wanting to help, all of us need to pay more attention to the direction of the ushers, because we're going to be escorted into the building and taken to a seat depending on the size of our household or if we're an individual, so that we can utilize as much space as we are able to do so. So it's going to take some charity on our part, some realization that we're not going to sit in the same spot, but we're actually going to be at the same Eucharist, which is the most important thing.